Shall we start? Okay. So, welcome everyone. Do you need me to go through the fire evacuation procedures, or?
I think it's probably for the best.
Okay. All right. So, the fire escapes can be found at both ends of the Holly chamber. There was no fire alarm drill scheduled. On sounding of the alarm, all personnel are to evacuate into the Holly's car park. The council members of the public and the press may film, record, photograph for live and or subsequent broadcast this meeting only when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Any member of the public who attends the meeting and objects to being filmed, recorded for photographs should advise the clerk in advance, who will instruct that they are not included in filming, recording or photographing. Okay, so we'll go straight on to public question time. Okay, apologies for absence. I don't believe there are any.
You're present.
Okay, declarations of interest. Again, I don't think there's any. Okay. Okay, confirmation of the previous minutes. Anyone got any problem with them? Okay. So you just need to initial them now.
Sign them and date them, please.
Sign and date them. She's bossy. 18. Thank you. Okay, so straight on to planning applications. So I believe the first three items have already been resolved.
More than that.
It's 4, 5, sorry.
5, 6.
6. So do we need to, I don't suppose we need to go through them, do we?
No.
We've covered them. We need to read them all out.
Responses have all gone off.
Okay, so we can skip straight past the first 6 items we've already resolved. So we're on to 24/00687/FUL, which is provision of a new dormer to existing home office in roof space over detached garage, Grove Bungalow, Welton Grove, Welton. Has anyone any issue?
This did go out as a form. I only had 2 responses because obviously then this came to a meeting and Martin isn't here, so I'll say Martin's response was to refer to the planning officer, and then I had one other in, which I won't say because it might be predetermination, but they're welcome to say what they thought.
But if you go down that road, there are.
They've all had some
That's
level
right, yeah. So I've got
modification.
I live around the corner from there, so I've got no problems.
Okay.
I've got no problem.
Okay, so we're all happy with that one, are we? Yeah?
Is that approval
Okay.
then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to the easy one now. 24/0062/FUL.
Well, we
Demolish-
know what about that one, don't we?
Well, okay, so demolition of 26 and 28 Orchard Vale and development of 60 new homes.
60?
I would say that should be 54.
Yeah.
That's a mistake by Baines on their. I think they might have adjusted it now. That was a mistake on their
Alright.
website. So it should read 54 new homes with open space, landscaping, and all associated infrastructure. This is a cross-boundary application with Somerset.
No.
Yeah, well, refusal.
Well, first of all, thank you for Linda and Deb for coming along on the Monday to the presentation from Curo and the residents meeting. I think the residents were quite strong in their objection.
And valid objections as well.
Valid objections. So this application was previously refused by Baines at the end of November, beginning of December. In fact, it was refused at Somerset, at committee, and at Baines it didn't even go to committee. They refused it before it even got to committee. So it's been refused. The new application is an identical application and they've put that in their planning statement. They haven't changed anything in the actual design. All they've done is try to address some of the concerns that were made by Somerset about it being sustainable. And the way they've tried to adjust that is by changing the heating method to air source heat pumps instead of boilers. They've now decided that the residents don't have to go to Oak Hill to dog surgery. They can all register at Elm Hayes.
Yes.
Sorry, not Elm Hayes, sorry,
Or
St Chad's, which we find difficult to understand that 54 houses, St Chad's have got the capacity to take in 54 households of new patients.
I had a conversation with my doctor today, and he's retiring. And I don't think they have any room for new ones. Even though they just tied up with, what's it called, on North Road.
Somerton House.
Yeah, that's now one surgery.
Which
Yeah.
has spaces at the moment. They have
Yeah.
open spaces at Somerton House. It's a common misconception that GP surgeries are based on local authority boundaries, but it has nothing to do with it. We're not about NHS. So actually a whole bunch of people in Somerset, as it is, can quite happily register for Somerton House. So so the GP thing is probably a bit of a misdirection really, because as I said, it's not linked to the local authority. So whether it's on this side of the boundary or that side of the boundary, it doesn't really matter.
But you can't get a dentist around here either.
But it will be for the planning officers to determine whether the statement they've made in their planning statement is correct or not.
But then, I mean, who was it ultimately made the decision for what's gone on up at White Cross or White Post? Sorry. I mean, Mendip didn't want that. We didn't want it. Westfield didn't. No, because Mendip, I went to their meeting.
Yeah.
And all right,
it's
and they said no, they didn't want to be building here, but it was the sort of governmental officer who said to do it.
It's complicated.
It also appeared, because also I do Somerset, it also appears in the local plan too as housing for Somerset. So that area was in their local plan too for allocation of housing. So that was one of the reasons, but I don't know what I mean.
Yeah, that one's slightly complicated to do with housing supplies and stuff.
So going back to the GP surgery, sorry Sean, I mean, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying to be correct, I don't know, I'm sure it is, but most people want to go to a doctor's surgery close by. And secondly, you know, when you're getting texts, like I did this morning from St Chad's, basically saying, due to GP illness, please don't contact us unless it's basically an emergency. You kind of got that layer on top as well, so I get it.
Yeah. The other change was to do with the schools, which was they've said that there is allocation for a primary school for the kids in that state to go to local primary school rather than have to travel. And for the older kids, they basically put into their plan that they will supply free bus service to Wells for 5 years. Or is they put in a financial provision to provide buses for 5 years. So that's attempting to deal with the sustainability issues raised by Somerset. That wasn't raised.
But they were also saying about there's dental places.
Yeah.
Well, last year I went into my dentist on North Road to tell them that Richard was no longer with us, and could I then book in my son, who was with a dentist in Bristol. I mean, I go there, and he can't drive at the moment because of his chemo. And they said, no, we're not taking him anymore.
Yeah.
So they just lost a patient, but they weren't taking another one on.
No.
So
Yeah.
which dentist is going to take on more people?
No.
I think what I said is that I don't think it's a valid reason to complain about the GPs, because it isn't based on that.
No,
and it would be the same for any housing development wherever it was. So it's not specific to this housing development.
It's
And the schools one's interesting as well. So I think they've modelled something like 7 children are likely to go into secondary school from this development, which is probably about right from 60 houses. Currently we have 2 secondary schools which are not at capacity, but they're full, but they could probably accommodate that number of children. We also have several primary schools in St Norton that are well under capacity. So we have one that's about 50% capacity, we have St John's is about 75%, and Welton's about 70% I think as well. So we actually have quite a lot of school spaces. So again, while I think it's a concern, I don't think it's a valid.
Well, the officers need to validate it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, one of the things the officers would be looking at is the pipeline of housing that we have in Baines for this. I mean, we've got to look at the new local plan, which we'll go on to later, but the combination of the different housing sources means that it is going that the schools, so they're all going to come to pressure, even without the Somerset.
Do we have any allocated housing in Middlesbrough North at the moment? I don't know where
Yes.
the allocated housing is.
Welcome back.
Okay, there's some for there.
Yeah.
Was it the
We've got 900 houses in this local area,
No.
or the current provision, and that's going to increase dramatically, not so much directly in Middlesbrough North, Farringdon, Gurney,
So I sort of looked at the local plan, and so yeah, there's not very much in Middlesbrough North. And I can talk
No,
about
we've done-
about Oliver Brooks and stuff, but it's all Farrington
Yeah.
further apart. So
That's
at the moment.
yeah. Well, that's why it's important for us to be part of the options meetings that happened before this. That we have our voices in that option meeting, where it's determined what would go forward. So back onto this one. So I say that the planning application is an identical application to the one that was refused by Somerset and
A couple of key
Baines,
differences we can come on to. Yeah.
such as.
Well, one of the best ones I think is actually really interesting. So Town Council on the 27th of September 2022, when we first had to discuss this application, one of the things we did was we pulled apart the travel plan, because the travel plan was wholly inadequate. And it's funny because the travel plan actually identified the fact that the road infrastructure around about there was absolutely terrible, and there's lots of lack of drop curbs, lack of pedestrian disabled access. So the Town Council actually said that specifically in the comment, that that was not a valid travel plan, because it wasn't addressing the issues. Now, one of the changes that have gone into this resubmitted application is 10 pedestrian crossings around the area, including one very importantly on North Road, which I think is really good because we desperately need a crossing there because it's a really dangerous spot. So that is one thing we've actually
Well, they're going to have
listened.
10 crossings
Okay.
in that area.
Well, it's mostly around the estate. Then there's a couple across North Mead,
So
which
that's
is really
blocking out
handy.
on road parking as well,
So-
right? So you've got that, you put a crossing in.
So
you
what-
take out the
Well, they're based on desire lines. So.
Okay.
I just think it's a wholly unsuitable site access-wise.
Is it? I just think it's really useful because we actually made a constructive comment and it's actually made a bit of a difference.
Yeah. Oh, there was always going to be something positive in every application. I think we've got to look at the overriding factors of this. I mean, one important factor is that this was originally put into their local plan, and obviously through the judicial review, it was removed from the local plan. They're currently reviewing, and we'll go on to this later, their new local plan in accordance with the instructions from the judicial review, and this site is no longer going to be allocated within their local plan. They have no intention of putting it back into their local plan. So that's changed in as much as Somerset are not planning to put this in their local plan anymore. The 270 you're talking about was slightly different because they gave planning permission on that one even before they started the review of the new local plan. So whether it went in or didn't was irrelevant, it would already be passed. So, okay, so where does that leave us on this then? I'm happy to propose that we object, but you know it's a committee, so
I'd always say I prefer not to object. As difficult as that is, because I don't think
on what
it's...
grounds?
Well, as I said, a lot of the complaints or a lot of objections I've addressed 3 already. So when you go through them, I understand people's concerns. I personally find a lot of them are not totally well founded, so we have to take that into
Such
account.
as?
Well, I mentioned the doctor's surgeries, the schools. The other one was traffic, although the traffic caused by 55 houses is actually less than negligible.
Well, you do know that they're planning to apply for TROs to put WLOs in to access the site,
Yeah,
which
I mean-
will cause our existing residents not
It's
to be able to
good to go back in history. Like my development, which is 10 years old now. Before I moved in, it was very, very controversial when people heard that I was moving from Bath. People were very upset in Bath, people were very upset in this and that. I moved in. But if you go through the planning, right, everybody objected to my estate. 112 houses, there are protest groups and all the rest of it. With these park, traffic chaos. And the thing is, it's made no difference to the traffic on Redfield Road or Withy's Park. Now, one of the councillors at the time that objected, who lives on Withy's Park, I said to him afterwards, I said, so what has been the effect of my development, the development I live on the traffic? And he said, to be honest, we thought it would be terrible. It's made no difference at all. And I've now realised that actually the perception of traffic impact is often a lot less. So the modelling we've talked about for this development is 40 car movements in the morning, 40 in the evening, and something like 350 through the day. So my development, when I live on this, 112 houses, and we have never seen any queuing to get in or out ever. So I just think that's another one that
Okay.
we should take into account the fact that the perception is probably worse than it would be.
Okay, I
Can
think.
I make a comment on that? Is that with these the lane through Withys Park is completely different from where they are. If you drive around there, you've got cars parked on the road on both sides constantly. Whereas you go through Withys, you haven't. It's wider, and there's more. You come out of your estate, and there's more exit points actually coming out with a clear run, quite a wide road. I think it is different actually.
Maybe.
I do.
But the North Leeds Road is a much bigger road than Withys Way. Withys Park, which is what Withys Way leads on to.
Yeah, no, but still, I'm right with Withys Park. That's,
Yeah.
that's quite a wide road, and there's not that much on-road parking there, but there is around this area.
So there actually is. There's no yellows or parking restrictions at
No,
all.
I know there are.
Okay.
There aren't, but there's not that many.
What I'm saying is that there are
It's just
access issues because of pavement parking, which is unavoidable through Orchard Avenue and various other parts, Pinewood and whatever. It means that access is severely restricted driving through the estate.
But would you expect parking from this development to reach beyond the scope of the development? Because again, that's never happened in my development. So there's a few planning issues which are quite serious in So if you look at the housing plans that Cura have gone for, it's actually slightly worse than my development. So in order to meet parking obligations, what they keep on doing is building strips of parking on the sides of people's houses. People never use them because people don't block each other in. And they've actually got 3 in a row by some houses. So that will lead to an awful lot of on-street parking within the development. But if you actually look at the development, there is plenty of room on the road in this development.
In the
to have
development, yes.
parking. So
The
you
parking
wouldn't
in
see
the
backing up
development
onto-
isn't the problem.
So you wouldn't see
It's the
backing up-
access roads that are the problem.
Okay, but you wouldn't see that parking backing up onto the adjacent development. I don't think.
It's not the backing up, it's the access.
Access.
It's the vehicle access, it's emergency vehicle access. It's a lot of, I suggest you read the reports. There are issues with access onto the, and it's been acknowledged by Curo that there are access issues.
Okay.
Which is why they're looking at TROs, to put in double yellows, to remove vehicles that are existing there, to allow them to access their new estate.
That's something that should be done anyway if there's access issues.
Well, do you think that the existing residents that have been there for years should have double yellows outside their house?
Well, if an ambulance can't get to the back of the estate, perhaps, which
Well-
is what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Well, as I say, it's okay. So there are positives of every estate. I'm saying this one, apart from the fact that, as I say, the residents will pay no council tax, no contribution towards our town or our county.
Which is an interesting point as well. because-
Out of the 54 houses, only 18 will be social and affordable. None of those will be available to Miss Norton.
That's not true.
Just 2, isn't it?
There were 2 that are going. There's 2 they're going to knock down that they're
2
going to
extra.
replace.
For
Yeah, 2 extra then.
both banks and anyone, it's the full housing will be available for people
Okay.
in housing in the area.
Okay.
So that's a really interesting point as well. So that's one of the comments that people will be paying council tax to Somerset and they'll be using all the resources. However, it's absolutely a misconception. What will actually be happening is Somerset County Council will be having to pay to get their roads maintained, they'll have to pay to get their bins, and they'll have to actually provide education services if they're not available in Midsummer Norton. Meanwhile, so Baines aren't actually paying for any of these services. However, we are getting the benefit of all those people shopping in our high street, and they reckon the economic benefit to our high street, this development alone, is about £1.5 million a year.
Okay, so you want to support it?
No, I'm
I
just
want
saying.
to object to it.
No, it's not black and white. I'm just saying that.
No, it's well, okay.
I think perhaps what's got to be projected is a balanced view, not subject to external factors.
Well, I'm saying we haven't got time tonight to debate all of the issues with it. There are issues to do with ecology, there's access, there's road safety, there's flood risk, there's employment, there's the council tax issues, there's all sorts of different issues down here. So, I mean, we could, but I think, we spent 2 hours debating this on the Monday night with Curo. So, there's a lot of issues.
Well, can I go back to what I was saying earlier? I know a lot of people are against it. I don't think it's necessarily constructive to say object, even if there's an objection in there. I think there are
objections.
Well, but I'm just saying there are constructive ways we can object. So the last time we put in our objection the fact that there wasn't enough infrastructure improvements to the local road network, pedestrian network. That's gone in now, so it's positive. I think it would be good to comment on that. I think you can
I think
also
I don't agree with that. If you look at the 106 contributions, they're very, very low.
look at 10 extra crossings going in though, which aren't
Well, crossings aren't
I
everything.
really want to know
No,
where
but
they're going.
but it's something that
These 10 crossings.
it's something that we specifically mentioned as a council, and that there weren't enough pedestrian facilities, drop curbs, and all the rest of it. So they have addressed that with 10 crossings identified, which I think is a positive thing from our being, was it commenting constructively? I also think there are other constructive comments we can make. So, for instance, a lot of people have mentioned this boundary issue. I think we should put in any comment the fact that, we've said this before, we should say it again, principal area boundary review should be requested, because clearly this boundary is becoming anomalous.
So that option, that ship sailed about 3 or 4 years ago. We had the option to look at a boundary review. It was refused by Baines. Baines made it very clear that they don't want to do a boundary review. So that has no impact on this.
I can't, again, it's not a material consideration, so I couldn't put it in the
And you can
comment.
put it in the previous comments. And I think it's quite an important thing to say, because a lot of residents have talked about it, and it has created, if you actually look at the Boundary Commission, it's created a democratic anomaly where you get a whole bunch of people living that's north and have no.
It's not relevant to this. It's not something that this specific application is not relevant. Baines have already refused to get involved in any boundary reviews. They had the opportunity when the situation changed in Somerset to look at boundaries. They refused to. So this application has to be judged on the current boundary that we have. So I'm at a loss now where you guys want to take this application.
Well, I would like to refuse it, or whatever, object it to it, yes. Yeah.
So would I. That's what I stand.
I don't agree that we're in a position to object to it as such, because the type of housing that we should encourage in the area is along these lines. The type of housing that we've got up at White Post serves no real benefit, and it's not far away over this one, because it's within walking distance to High Street and lots of amenities and such, and there's a small kind of complementary development to the situation and by Haskell that is considerate and will look after it and such in perpetuity. So there's an argument to say there are objections to this that should be taken into account. There's also positives that should be taken forward to say we are a council that wants to look at good house builders in good locations. This may or may not work out, but to just object to it is quite strong when they do start to address some of the issues and objections we've got. So I agree with Gordon in the sense that we need to be constructive in our feedback, not just kind of criticise it without kind of founded expertise, because we aren't experts in those things.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure it's a balanced kind of, yeah, because people speak for themselves in the way that they say go on there and object and such. So.
Well, I think a lot of the objections are valid. I think there was 200 written objections to this by residents. There wasn't a single letter of support in amongst that.
But things, a lot of those objections did mention things brought up this evening, and there are mitigating factors to those objections.
Well, a lot of those are residents that will have to deal with the consequences of this development.
Oh, if it's affecting GP surgery, it would be the same effect as us to those residents. What's the next one?
There's a whole ream of different issues with this development.
I mean, some of the objections have said things like there's no, we can't support the employment, but it's a long-term plan.
Well, actually, in their local plan, they claim they're going to create 167 new jobs with this development, which is completely wrong. It won't create a single new job.
Well, no, I don't know about that. It might create temporary work, I suppose, but it is very well placed for the Summer Valley Enterprise Zone, which is being built in relation to the Baines plan of building 14,500 new houses, of which 30% of those will be social affordable, and will actually seriously tackle the issue we've got with 5,500 households on our waiting list.
This hits 30%.
This,
isn't it?
sorry?
It hits 30%.
It is, but it doesn't actually help us with our issue. The people that qualify for those social and affordable houses will be people from places like Frome and Shepton Mallet. It won't help solve the Midsummer Norton issue or the Baines issue. So,
I'm not sure we should localise in that respect. It's a bit sort of
my stance is the overwhelming response from residents is that they're objecting to this.
They have to be founded in their valid children, not just
Sorry?
they have to be founded on something they're valid from the individual's perspective.
Well,
They feed into that argument. But
can I suggest that you read them?
They don't speak. I've read through them, sure.
Okay,
That's
so
quite
you don't believe that the
common.
residents'
No.
objections
So,
are fully valid?
so anyone who says something is, you're not going out to say who is positive about those people are looking for the type of housing around here and localities that are close to high street and walking distance. There's never kind of people that go, oh, I really want to buy a house there when it comes up. They do it after with their feet when they buy a house there because they fly off the shelves around here. And it's very much like localised to the local area, and people kind of get involved with kind of making those people come forward and do that sort of stuff. And for what reason? It's got to be balanced from our perspective because we're representative not just that
Absolutely, all objections need to be balanced.
We're representative of the whole of Mr Norton, and
Okay.
where there's growth potential, we should be considering it in any balanced way.
I mean, I think their modelling said Midsummer Norton was short of about 2,000 houses based on demand at the moment. And
And we are boundary stricken.
Yeah,
We
that
have
helps.
boundary limitations apart from our bad company. There's not any real development area.
right, we've had 5 houses for rent at the moment in Midsummer Norton. So there is a bit of a housing crisis locally. So the thing is, to be, what's the word, constructive again. I was going to say, if the council were minded to object, and I fairly didn't personally, can we also maybe to object constructively and say, while we object, we welcome certain things, we recognise the need for housing, we think that it's good to put in pedestrian infrastructure, but we are concerned, or we share residents' concerns about certain things, like for instance the boundary, which I know is very common, and things like that, because rather than just saying no, which I find is difficult, because then you have to apply those same no's to every single development that comes up, because all houses could be built in some sort of field.
Okay, so that's a proposal to personally, I don't agree with that. But we're a democracy, so we have. Personally, I would like to object. I think Somerset have decided they don't want it. Somerset don't want it. They're not going to put it in their local plan. Baines don't want it. A judicial review said it shouldn't be in there. The residents don't want it. So far, the only people I know that want it is you two.
No,
Now,
it's the people that don't have houses.
as far as sorry, okay, so Somerset have said they don't want this development.
Look, with regards to that, planning applications, like you said, to use your sort of paraphrasing, applications go in all the time, reviews all the time, they're appealed, they're reapplied for, this happens all the time. There are faults with the plan that go through the process of kind of being reapplied for, there's a reason they're reapplied. Why would they do that? I don't know. They're addressing certain things.
Maybe it's investment they've already made. Because if they don't, think about it. Think about it.
You have upfront at-risk costs.
Yeah,
go through
you're
planning.
not going to want to give those away, are you? So really, if the application is refused and they come to it, then every single penny they've invested in this has gone. So, I mean, that's a great incentive.
To developers, when you have a development situation, you always have the risks you have going forward with any development. And the land would be an option to have any upfront costs and all that, and legals and planning costs for that. And everything like that is fine, but they clearly believe what they can do is address issues with the original application that may, because it was caught up in judicial review,
Okay, look.
so it might get through.
Okay, we've only got 25 minutes, so we've got an awful lot more to get through, so I think we've stalled on this one.
We've got 3 to 2, haven't we?
So, I don't know which way you want to go on this. I mean,
We need to form a decent comment. That kind of
Well, that's exactly right, I think. I would say that if the
So that's-
majority is minded to
Or-
object, can we also put in a few things though that certain parts of the application are good, certainly the increased infrastructure, which largely came from this council, so we should be quite glad of that.
Yeah, so the material considerations that can be taken into account, highway safety, you're saying that they've addressed that from your previous comments, traffic and parking issues, not. That hasn't been addressed, has it, the traffic and parking?
Do you know about because they're putting 10 crossings in, that's that. I still don't get that. I'd like to know exactly where they are, and I still stand by you while they're taking away parking as
They're
well.
on the plan. No, they're not taking away parking. These are all like on Northmead Road and stuff like that, and some in the actual estate.
Northmead.
Basically, they're putting in Northmead Road. Yes, that's the one that goes down the hill off North Road. Yeah. And I think it's funny. We commented.
what you're talking about is a very long letter which contains all some reasons why it's good, some reasons why it's bad, and an overall summary. That's a very long document, and I don't know who's planning to write this long document. Now,
It's just got to reflect the conversation that's kind of been had here.
well, Okay, the reflection, as far as I'm concerned, is this development shouldn't be happening. I'm supporting Somerset Council, Baines Council, and the residents and a judicial judge, and saying this development shouldn't happen. That's my stance on this. There are some positives, as there will be with any development, but overall, I don't think this is to the advantage of Midsummer Norton or its residents. And
is that purely because of the location?
no, I told you, it's all sorts. It's ecology, it's roads, it's access, it's public safety, it's flood risk, it's employment.
Don't you just find that the same ecology arguments will be used for every single development, and the same ecology arguments seem to crop up in some of our enterprise zone, which some people were minded to support, some people weren't. So the problem is, I don't know what's so specific about this development, which means we don't like it, apart from the boundary issue, that when another development comes up, we'll say it's fine. Because the same ecology issues will come up, the same green field issues will come up, the same pressure on GP surgery.
There's no other developments in that area.
Well, the whole area of Midsummer Norton. And then
Well,
we get
well, okay.
situation, we can never support houses, and without supporting houses, a whole generation of people are never going to have
I think
opportunity
it's
to go home.
location. If you've got to nail it, it's location and access. I generally.
The other thing about that location is just a complete subjective without any kind of like history to it. That a lot of developments are like gateways to other developments. This one doesn't have that because it's surrounded by impermeable boundary of trees. So you couldn't develop outside of it. It's just a back. It's like a backfill area, and it's a technical kind of minefield with a boundary situation. But if we put forward constructive comments about like how it would benefit us, that's the way to kind of.
Okay, do you want to provide those? Does anyone want to provide a statement then?
The last comment that the council made was suitable originally, before it was submitted via the staff, and we didn't have staff in place. It wasn't kind of agreed as a format, minus the bits that have been addressed, to acknowledge that we appreciate any points addressed, but that we should emphasise the fact it should take into account the previous application.
But who wants to sit there and write the material considerations that you're talking about? Do you want to write them?
Well,
Because I'm not going to write them.
we do have the.
I don't agree with
we do
the
have
majority of this conversation.
Well, we do have the 2022 comment, which objected quite constructively, and it talked about ecology, it talked about amenity to appropriate neighbourly residents and all this sort of stuff. And they've addressed some of it, perhaps they haven't addressed all of it, but it was. And it also mentioned, maybe for instance, we should be
What's the deadline? What's the deadline for this, please, Kate?
Hold on, just bear with me, keep talking. I've got it written down.
Sorry, Gordon.
I totally understand that you want to object, and that's fine. And there's residents do as well, but I think it's really good if you just take the opportunity to say,
I've got the plan.
object constructively.
Yeah, and we can also talk about, I can't recall the exact content
Yeah.
of that objection.
And 62.
Logically, if we've made a list of objections previously and they're still valid, but some of them have been addressed, we need to acknowledge they've been addressed, and then look at the balance and say how many of these haven't been, and anything that's changed since then in terms of
Okay, so
contribution.
absolutely, it's okay. So going forward,
I
who
did.
wants to write
I didn't write
what they
it down in
believe
my
is a balanced objection, which all are material considerations?
What's the deadline for it?
More than happy to. The only problem is then it becomes if people don't agree with what I write. how do you
Exactly.
agree? That's
book.
what
Hold
I
on,
think.
sorry. No, it's
Is it 28th?
I didn't write it in my diary.
That's right, I found it, it's 28th.
Because it was coming here. And it was fairly a couple of weeks away.
Okay.
'cause
Well,
that's-
we're going around in circles here, so I'm quite happy to put forward a short statement just saying that we object.
Can we say something like we appreciate that we have done some things to mitigate residents' concerns, but there are still
I'm not
some
happy with
things
the
that are
mitigation,
outstanding?
I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not happy with the mitigation that they've put in. I don't think it changes the overall picture as far as this development is concerned.
But that's all we're supposed to be a sort of consultee on the planning process to put forward what, as a council and our representation.
Okay, look, we've got 20 minutes left and we've got about 2 hours worth of stuff to go through in a minute. So we need to come to some conclusion on this.
Okay, well, I know what I feel about it. And we are supposed to represent residents and
That's the big point.
ultimately, and they really don't want it.
Well, one of the biggest concerns is simply the boundary, which I agree is anomalous.
Okay, so if we were
Could
to,
we just object on that ground?
well, if we were to put in an objection on the basis that we say, although we appreciate that they've taken steps to mitigate the issues, we still object to this application. Does that solve the
I'd be
problem?
happy with that.
without having to
Yeah.
go into huge amounts of details.
Yes.
I'd also quite like the objection to include what I mentioned last time we considered this, which is that we
Okay.
want to encourage and support a developer like Curo in the area.
Absolutely.
And,
I had a chat with them afterwards about other places they could go.
Well, I have been obviously, when I've got a page, I've been noting down what you're saying. When I put in planning refusals, approvals or whatever, I never put, we just object. There will be a paragraph with this. I'll pass it by Katie first because this is a bit confusing, it's a bit long-winded. It won't go into the end of the week because I've got all day tomorrow. But I don't just put when we object, there is always a bit of a paragraph or a couple of sentences or something that backs it up.
Could that be just circulated to us and refer to the previous comment as well? Because
Well, I
just copy and
wouldn't
paste it.
refer it to the previous comment because that was 2 years ago. You're talking about now.
It wasn't necessarily 2 years ago. 'Cause
Well,
we
whenever 22.
we reviewed, that was the original one, and we re-reviewed
Yeah,
it.
you'll need to talk about this one now. You can't
So,
go back to the
no,
old
just-
one.
Just finished. What happened was we had the original comment, this council started in May, we had to re-apply a comment, and that comment was actually put through wrongly, and we didn't necessarily agree to the comment as a council, so we should go back to the original comment and amend that effectively for...
Okay, but I would suggest that Kate will write an objection, circulate it
It
for
won't be
revision,
finished Wednesday.
and if necessary, the five of us will vote on it
Yeah.
to decide whether we're happy with that or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we still amend it though? That's the problem. This problem is, as soon as we go outside of these meetings, then sometimes we don't have an opportunity to...
Well, you should.
Well, that's the whole point. Is we're going to circulate it. People can suggest amendments, but ultimately, we'll get to a point where we just have to agree to accept the objection.
I
we
don't
have.
think it just becomes difficult, isn't it? Because then some of us weren't happy the way it worked last time, which is reasonable, it's a democracy. So
We have got that format we can use in a way, the delegated format.
Do we know what the old application number is? So I can look it
Yeah,
up?
I can give it to you.
Thank you.
Okay. So
What was the old one?
it was. Let me find it for you.
do you want me, I've got it here.
Okay, thank you.
22
22.
/ 02932
Sorry, 029.
32
Yeah,
/ full, FUL,
cool. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
26. I think that's it. No, it wasn't. I think there's a lack of space. I think it's just FUL and it's 26 or FUL.
So it's 22, 029, 32.
I think so.
Cool.
02932, yeah. You've got to be careful because sometimes you get confused between that and actually some
I'll have a look
So
at
yeah,
it.
22 stroke 02932 stroke FUL.
Yeah, I'll have a see if I can put it down and have a look. But that is a completely separate plan.
Yeah. I mean, without dwelling on the subject too much, the reason
Well, we're not going to do because I've got a whole list of stuff we've got to go
I
through.
don't want the council though to object on certain grounds, which means they would sort of
So, but it,
determine our decisions on future applications, which some people may have the
But
same
can I-
issues.
can
It can't predetermine our decision on future applications.
Well, the thing is, the problem is, if
Each
each one
one-
say that we're worried about, say, the ecology angle, then the next development, then other people go, well, you've got to do that to be consistent.
So you've got a development there that's it's in a greenfield next to a protected woods that has TPOs, that has 10 species of bats, 5 of which are protected species, it has deer, it has otters, it has a huge amount of wildlife in there. The fact that it's partially floodplain also plays a major ecological factor in it. It's a unique piece of a feature of it.
Certain parts of it certainly are, but then certain parts of it always come up. So with my development, which I mentioned before, apparently it was on a huge floodplain, but it turns out it wasn't.
Okay,
So,
you take
know-
each one on its own merits.
Okay.
Two fields next to each other can all still have individual merits. We take this one on its own merits. Where its location, it's adjacent to the woods, its access issues, the wildlife issues that it has to, its particular issues with ecology and flooding.
We have to trust the expert surveying.
can I just confirm? It is refused, so it will be recommended refusal with the paragraph we're going to put together. So the
Yes.
decision won't be changed. It will be recommending refusal.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So the last application number we have is 24/00428 HPD, which is 6 Green Priory Close, Midsom Norton. Prior approval request for a single-storey rear extension.
Charlton Park.
Charlton Park has got on here.
Oh, is it?
Charlton
Why am I
Park.
looking at this one here? Oh, okay, sorry, I've gone down to the approved.
So
My apologies. It's,
Yeah, that's not good.
it's that, it's, okay.
There's been 2 or 3 very similar.
Okay, so it's 24/00809/HPD, sorry. Prior approval request for a single-storey rear extension that would, 1, extend beyond the rear wall of the original house by 3.3 metres, and 2, have a maximum height of 3.48 metres, and 3, have eaves that are 2.48 metres high. This is 8 Charlton Park.
I think in a consistent manner with other ones like this, we should refer to the planning officer as such. If there's anyone else has any concern about it.
second that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
Good.
Okay, so that's that. There are planning application responses to be noted from Baines that you have. Plus, I believe,
There's 6 more. Well, 3 of them are McDonald's, you know about that one.
Are these notifications?
These notifications,
So-
the McDonald's one you know about.
so McDonald's has been withdrawn.
Has
so
been
we know that.
withdrawn. 3892, 23/00892, which was internal alterations to include internal finishing and joinery details for the town hall. Oh, I wanted to bring this up today, has been allowed, but there's a time limit. So that's for the town hall. I wanted to bring that up today at the meeting because we're going to do it in 3 years. Anyway, so that's us, that's ours, that's the town hall.
We've been waiting for this, so this is.
So it's a great news,
4409, which
Yeah.
is formation of access road, footpath and cycle links, open space, landscaping for the past of Silver Street has been approved, and 4408, another matters for Silver Street has also been approved.
Can I make a suggestion around these responses? Because in the last meeting there was a little less, so I think we just kind of went through them, but I've read through these and everyone else has 7 minutes circulated, so can we just kind of acknowledge that we've acknowledged them individually, like as individuals on mass? Yeah. Is it?
So, yeah, I mean, they don't require any comment, they're ready for us to
Sorry,
note anyway.
just tell
The
us.
last meeting, because we read through them, it's just a bit, just, yeah.
Okay,
Just to be noted, pretty.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so that's the planning applications. So now we move on to the response to the Baines local plan options public consultation. So have you read the?
I've done mine.
Okay.
It's a nightmare of a document, really.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
So
The consultation is appalling.
And the thing is, actually, am I right in saying it actually doesn't affect a lot of Midsom Norton as much as you think? There's a couple of questions that are really key for Midsom Norton. One is certainly towards the end to do with would people prefer larger developments with more infrastructure, or would they also accept smaller developments that may not come with associated infrastructure? So that's a genuine question that we should consult on. But also, it wasn't affecting our
In
locality.
the same document, it acknowledged the fact the areas had a lot of bit part of development without infrastructure in it, so the clear answer to that, in line with what residents will probably also feel, is the fact that infrastructure hasn't been in place. We prefer large developments with suitable infrastructure. So that's kind of like, an opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah.
The reality is that there's very little really in terms of infrastructure in this new revised plan. There's lots of housing, but there's very little, and if there is, there's very little substance to it in the local plan. There's nothing to actually review. I think the consultation documents are difficult to navigate. I mean, and I'd also take issue that there are developments in here that we had no prior knowledge of. There's a development proposed here, which is the one which is at the end of the Chilcompton Road.
Yeah.
Those
talking about
across border developments,
Yeah.
which didn't even come up at the auction stages. It's suddenly come out of the blue.
That's cross-border, isn't it? Yeah, but it's been mentioned before. The developer, I wouldn't mention it, came and actually chatted about it before. But I think this is what Baines were kind of consulting about on, saying, would you prefer sort of smaller developments like that, and then which will add to the numbers, or would you prefer a few bigger developments? And then I guess when it's those developments actually get approved or whatever, they will come with the S16 obligations for the infrastructure.
Well, the reality is that, as I say, we've got to build 14,500 houses in Baines over the next 20 years. The other reality is that if we don't maintain the numbers and maintain our 5-year land supply, we'll end up with the same problem as Somerset have got.
So they've got concern, aren't they?
Yeah, but we have to maintain a 5-year land supply, and the reason that Somerset has so many problems is because they haven't maintained their 5-year land supply.
But in just like a local sense, just from St Norton, speaking in that respect, there isn't much developable land other than what's already been identified, and our main concerns would be that we don't want much more bit part sort of development because there isn't room for it without the respective infrastructure increases, which is like buses, all the things we've just commented are an issue. We should say that's what we want support for in St Norton. But if we want everyone to leap to St Norton, if they're going to dump 1,000 homes out of Frampton Dean and Gurney, they're going to dump another 1,000 homes the other side of Radstock, whatever it is, if they're going to mend it, and there's going to be cross-boundary kind of like settlements created on that skirt.
So what are you saying about the consultation? What's the actual consultation
How we got
document?
the comments as feedback from a local parish local council. It's the same issue, isn't it? How we come to a point where we've got something constructed and put across as a group.
Yeah.
But in one voice.
Have you read the document?
I have it. It's a huge document.
Right.
I'm interested in that stuff anyway. Full stop. That's my profession. So.
I mean, if you look at their priorities and objectives, it ranges from all sorts of very random comments that are so broad that it's really impossible to actually do anything constructive with them, to a note on there saying the local plan partial update, which was approved last January, removed the site allocation at South Road car park of a supermarket, which we did. We moved it from there, we moved it up to Welcome Bag site to enable them to have a development at the top. Opportunities for the use of the site will be reviewed alongside with the right of regeneration of the Norton Centre. So they're still at every stage looking at how they can use South Road car park, redevelop the car park. We've had a supermarket proposal, we've had a housing proposal, we've had 2 rounds of parking charge proposals, and now they're going back to looking at how they can utilise South Road car park.
That's natural though, it's cyclical, isn't it?
I don't agree. I think at this stage,
at every point we just sort of say what our concerns are. But I mean, like for example, driving through Bristol, so just off Church Road, the development there where the local authorities addressing the local affordable housing need by building a very ambitious, quite interesting modular housing construction above the car park. So it's actually coming on stilts, which is pretty cool. Where they've utilised that space. So there are ingenious ways of doing things where you kind of retain your asset and then access to it and stuff like that. But again, when it comes up, if it comes up, it's not specifically mentioned what they want to do.
Okay, right. Well, we've only got 5 minutes, and we've got all this to do, and we've got the Somerset local plan to do as well.
When do you have the council comment?
The deadline is the 8th of April.
The 8th of April.
I mean, I feel that it's a working party. It requires a conversation if you think it's worth the council making a specific comment. The one thing I did identify there, I think, is probably one of the most pertinent questions to ask: would you prefer big development with infrastructure or small piecemeal development? And it's interesting that this Underhill Lane one came up. Now I know it's outside the boundary, but I get the impression that we'll always struggle in St Norton to accept small piecemeal developments because of local objections and all the rest of it, and everybody complains about a lack of infrastructure. So bigger developments, if they do come with more infrastructure, may be better off for the town because they'd be more planned.
But the reality is that they're going to do both.
Yes.
So it really doesn't, it's a daft question.
Well, it's not much of an option, is it?
Well, no, okay. So if you've got to build 14,500 houses, and 6,000 of those are already allocated throughout Baines, and that's using every single brownfield site we've got, everything we can find to build on that 6,000. So now we've left with 8,500, which will have to go onto greenfields, because there isn't any other option.
But it's just to cut into some sorry, but the key thing about this Norton is there isn't a boundary that's suitable for development within Baines' remit.
Well, so within the local plan,
so we can feed back to say that all we're going to really end up getting is lots of piecemeal bit part applications which aren't going to contribute much to infrastructure, which what we would prefer is wherever they decide to put big housing developments, we want the equivalent infrastructure investment.
But they're not planning on adding any more to our area at this moment in time.
No, exactly. So
But that could change if the other site allocations fail.
absolutely, but they won't find it in the boundary of Midsummer Norton because there's no developable, nothing within that boundary.
Well, So I think it depends how you look at Midsummer Norton, of course, because obviously you've got the Southern Valley Enterprise Zone, and then you've got all that land between there and Farrington Gurney, where they want to build 500 houses. So you could find that they could merge that area between Farrington Gurney and Midsummer Norton. They could build out across then towards Timms. We're surrounded by green fields, and they're going to be building 8,500 houses on green fields.
So that's the point coming back to Gordon's thing, is that is smaller developments that maybe wouldn't have the infrastructure that was suitable for us as a town.
But
That's what we need to.
But the problem is that the small ones are great, but they don't overall help us solve this problem of the 5-year land supply and maintaining that on high numbers.
Yeah, so that's what Gordon's point is, because we say that if there was something we wanted to put forward as a town in relation to all the things we talked about, it would be something like we prefer large developments with decent infrastructure consideration and small bits that don't contribute.
The reality, I mean, I've sat through 2 years of options on the LDF meetings, where all of this has been, it's all discussed at LDF meetings before it actually gets to this stage. And they're quite heated at times, because obviously you've got different councillors all trying to resist too much construction in their own areas. This current local plan puts a huge weight on Cambridgeshire, on Salford, Hicksgates, all of that corridor, because it's more sustainable because of the road structure. But they also say they're coming out 500 there, there's 200 in East Downset John, Radstock. We've done all right out of this, but in terms of we haven't.
This is what I mean, is we want to kind of be identified as Midsummer as the hub that all those housing developments kind of use and go to, the transport's linked to it. There's some considerations around that, so that when they look to make offsite contributions to certain things, how we get that in is kind of only linked to that.
We have to be objective about the detail that's in the. I mean, we're not going to be able to have to deal with this one tonight because we're out of time, and we're not going to be able to deal with the Somerset local plan review either because we're out of time.
Does it count much what we say to the Somerset one?
Well, they've invited our comment.
Yeah. So the Somerset, so this one we'll have to try and work something together through some correspondence through email where we comment, and we'll collate the comments from all of us on this and see if we can put something together in time for the dates.
We could just have an ad hoc meeting.
That's possible.
We could do.
Or I could make you like a whiteboard, and you can all put down your ideas and your statements.
Yeah,
and we can compile that.
because you get to delete other people's, don't you?
Okay, so on the Somerset one then, we're going to be in a similar position. Basically what they've done is because of the judicial review, they had to remove 5 sites from their local plan. So they then had to undertake that selection process again from scratch, which is what they're going through at the moment. And they've reached that option stage where they're saying, okay, we've got some options here. They've indicated certain sites that were in the original one that are not going to be brought back in, like Underhill Lane. And there are some new ones, like a cross-border one along there, which is new to this local plan. They're still looking at the numbers. They're still going to be short on their 5-year land supply, so they're still vulnerable to.
This is where, as a town council, I know we're retired, this is where it was so important for us to either get our neighbourhood plan done or something similar, because as these developments go in, that's at this early stage is where to get our infrastructure needs identified, and there's a good chance of getting things delivered as part of the development.
Well, which is why, let's say, which is why we need a plan.
Yeah.
But the plan's been on the back burner for a decade now.
As I said, we're stuck with the plan.
Yeah, it's
make progress with
difficult to have got constructive comments into this without kind of a cohesive neighbourhood plan, isn't it? It should be an objective to prioritise ready for when these consultations come around again, so we can, you know, we've got a reference point everyone's familiar with.
Or I suppose we get to put feedback into the local plan as well, though, which is, in the absence of the neighbourhood plan, is still valuable if they
Yeah.
pick it up.
It's just harder for us to come together with that cohesive language to communicate what we want and need, or like.
I think the option of us putting anything much into this local plan, I think, is unlikely.
It's difficult, isn't it? And we haven't really done the consultation as well, and so as a town council, we're speaking as individuals, but not necessarily representing because we haven't consulted.
No, the local plan is, as I say, it's that step up. It's a broader picture. It's where we're going to put houses, what the parking standards will be, and all these different aspects of planning. So, you know, we can participate in this, but our influence is really low. Whereas if we have our own neighbourhood plan, we have some protection.
They would refer to it in the way that they made the local plan, wouldn't they? Because it would be consulted on, it would be like an individual localised consultation.
Yeah.
And most of that in our area probably is
So-
like better transport and links and development of the high street and whatever else.
Right, so we need to arrange a meeting to discuss effectively how are we going to create a neighbourhood plan.
Oh, I'm all up for ideas, I'd love to.
Let's just-
actually do it myself.
We'll arrange a meeting for all of us that are interested to decide a plan on how we're going to create that neighbourhood plan. Because it's been
Well, the thing is, one's almost
What's happening
there,
about this?
and it's funny because it's just got bunged up in the system, and even,
I thought we
but it's not though, is it?
I know, but what we need to do,
It's not almost there. That's
Because
the
Tim and
problem.
I've had several meetings now with George. Are we finished yet? 'Cause I don't want to.
Well,
we have to move some of the.
okay. Well, before we do then, so first of all, with both the response to the Baines local plan options consultation and with the Somerset response, we will have to deal with that. If necessary, we'll call a meeting to discuss them.
Or we could
But-
have a team meeting.
but
Necessary.
But using Katie as our conduit to pull all the information together,
Yeah.
we'll get our comments on those two plans together, and then we can decide either we're happy to put forward an objection or a proposal or a comment. If not, we'll have to call a special meeting just to hammer it out. Okay?
Yeah.
If interested parties are willing to put some time in, we'll manage to.
Are you happy with that, Katie?
Yeah, and you can have a working party any time, but which I would recommend trying to call a separate council meeting. You just have a
Yeah.
get together over Teams and
That's fine.
bash together a team.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So, anything else on our agenda? Is there?
So
we can-
it's just a review of the delegation process now, but
Yeah.
we can do that till the time, and we
Yeah.
might learn.
I think we had a.
We've learned something about this process we're going to do now that might, develop and improve that.
So, and I will apologise because I think having looked at the agenda, perhaps I should have realised that the time was going to be tested tonight. So,
Most of our planning meetings do not even have to hold.
exactly. But no, having looked at the agenda, I should have really thought about the fact that we.
So is number 9 deferred to the next meeting then?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah. Well, let's make sure there is a planning meeting.
Now we've got one within 90 days.
So will we
Yeah.
continue to do the delegation, the forms,
Yes.
until
you
such
can't
time as
have
we've got another
one,
meeting?
Yeah.
Tim?
I do think we need to discuss it, because although I think the use and the method we're doing it is brilliant for us in terms of saving time and resolving things that don't require much discussion. Having not done one in a while, I can't remember what it is, but I think it's the way that we kind of form our comments as a result of those. If we were to sort of do something.
Well, you can comment on the applications.
There is a comment on there.
Yeah, it's
So
just
what
how they
happens
would be.
is they all come in, it then gets automatically onto a spreadsheet. To be honest, up to date, there have been no
Exactly,
comments.
this is the thing.
But it's up to you to put to make the comments.
Absolutely. So in that sense, so for example, if we did say this again at the moment, we'll put the comments on there as we felt fit.
There is a comment box.
Yeah, so we'd end up with what I asked then is how it gets from being, say, like potentially like 6 or 7 comments into a sort of concise.
I can
Yeah, so
define
it's
how.
that process isn't fully clear to me how we would then agree that comment that's representative as always one comment,
Then there's no
because that's what we
comment.
should put forward.
Well, that's 'cause we-
So basically, when we look at it, you'd kind of put it all together,
Yeah. It's
Another
just how,
statement.
it's just my concern.
So you
being
want
how-
that, sorry, do you want that statement then to go back out?
Yes,
Right.
so that it's clear and representative.
Exactly. Well, I feel that if we have to make a statement, I feel we should do it in person, so we have a democratic chance to argue.
Yeah, so like this is a good example, is we've had this conversation, now everyone's had the voice, opportunity to do it. But what then comes is that is the exact format we need, isn't it now? So we almost could then put our thoughts down and then it could be
But then,
collated and then
That's
we've got
fine,
to
I
come
can
back
do
and
that.
around.
but then I have to give you a shorter deadline. Because I tend to give you a
That's fine.
deadline probably 3 or 4 days before the application deadline.
Yeah, bring the deadline forward, we only need 3 working days or something like that to look at
I still
application,
feel
do
that
it, for us to do it.
It's not, if people wish to make comments though, I feel it's better that we have some sort of in-person meeting, because for instance, say somebody makes a comment and they didn't even realise it was totally unjustified. Say it was me, I said something completely silly.
Yes.
And someone says, Gordy, you didn't mean to say that, you haven't read it properly. I was like, oh, you're totally right.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to make that comment.
Yeah, but
the
I
point
would-
is if they just all go in,
No, I wouldn't automatically, I would read them. I would use
No,
them.
no,
not a silly comment. I meant something like I might have misunderstood some planning.
Yes.
And Sean might go, actually, Gordy, you're wrong about
Yeah.
that.
All
I'll
right.
say, so thank you. So I don't want that to comment.
So what you're basically saying is if we use the scheme if there's no comment, if there is a comment, then we'll automatically have a meeting.
Yes. In a nutshell, Sean.
Okay, that's fine.
And it's, yeah, we can,
And then, but okay, let's go with that for now, and it's on the agenda to be reviewed at the next meeting anyway.
yeah,
So we'll make time to discuss it in more detail at
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Just unfortunately, a lot to do.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine. So we can now close this meeting, unless Kate's found something else for us to. Okay, right, the meeting closed.
But, so
Thank you.
quickly for the next